I think we've just gone down this road and just a lot of people have been educated on, what's going to work, what's sustainable and what's not. And most important thing I find, and I love this term, and I think this fits the psychedelic space, it's all about making the wrong turn down the right road. Hey everyone, welcome to this TDR Psychedelic Exclusive, and it's time to bring in a familiar face back to the podcast, all tanned up. Saw you in Miami a couple weeks ago at the Benzinga Conference. Good to see Psychedelic Advocate, Zappy Zapolin. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. That Benzinga event was phenomenal.
Did you have an umbrella?
I don't know.
Did you have an umbrella?
I, I needed one. Well, I'll tell you the best part about the rain was everybody heard historic rain, but what happened was the event became really intimate because people couldn't just jump out and go to the beach for a little bit or take a phone call outside. We all really had to be inside, and that was the magic of this Benzinga. Was you had all the high quality Wall Street folks, you had the quality reporters, you had the quality companies that are, now the leading companies in the industry. You got, all these folks. So I look at it and I go, wow, that rainstorm was incredible because I think it actually advanced the industry because all those people had to stay together for a few days and not leave.
Love how you're positive. But
that was the silver lining on that one.
I will say, so the conference itself was 3 days. The first 2 days was cannabis, followed by the third day of psychedelics. And the cannabis mood, from what I saw from previous years of going there, this year was very somber. There was a big crowd that was definitely there over the course of the 3 days, but somber mood related to cannabis because stocks have been hit hard, down 90%. I'm sure psychedelic investors can relate to what they're feeling about. But as far as forward-thinking statements, there's no real catalyst moment involved in cannabis anytime soon. There's so much complication as far as legislation, but some of the dialogue and feedback that I received, and I'm sure you could probably relate to this, there's a lot of optimism pertaining to the industry. This is a pure biopharma medicinal play, and the market size, not only in the US, but globally, is massive. And what I'm seeing now are institutions are finally understanding what the true potential is. I don't think there's going to be a lot of companies at the end of the day, but there's a select few that have tremendous growth opportunities. But did you find the same while you were there?
I did. I really did. I mean, the psychedelic day was very electric because, it started off with, Jeremy Gardner and Brock Pierce, two, very wealthy guys in crypto, billionaire still status in crypto that have their Mystic Ventures fund doing business here, finding deals, so that was really exciting to kind of hear their perspective. And they had a big picture for this.
What was their perspective?
What
was their perspective, if you don't mind sharing with my audience?
It was kind of what you just said, like, this is medical, this is bioscience. Like, we have this opportunity where post-pandemic, that with all the people worrying about mental health and addiction, these are the cures, and they're sophisticated enough people that they've done enough psychedelics themselves. They've been involved in enough real business to know, hey, this is a mega trend like crypto, and who the winners are. They've got their Mystic funds, so they're going to take a bunch of swings like a fund would do, and they're pretty confident that some of those are going to be enormous. And so, it kicked off with that, kind of set everybody right. Matthew Johnson from Johns Hopkins, he is the number one scientist in the psychedelic space. So for him to sit down and give us all, a session on what's happening with the science and the data, it was so positive that I think everybody there was like, wow, like, this is coming from Matthew Johnson saying, how favorable the MAP stuff is, how incredible, how significant it's going to be for Compass Pathways to commercialize, for just breakthroughs that he's seeing in statistics, just, being way better than everybody thinks. He said, kind of wait till the MAPS data comes out. I think you're going to have, be very impressed. And that was a big signal from Matt Johnson.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, like, that's the optimism that's taking place. Is the readout, the phase 3 trial related to MAPS? I'm hearing around midsummer that those readouts will happen. Did you hear anything timeline-wise as to when people can anticipate that?
They didn't, but like you and I were talking about a little earlier, I think MAPS is making some moves that suggest they're getting close. You know, you talked about the new executive director coming in and Rick Doblin, quietly not being the executive director, still being the face and working every single minute for MDMA therapy approval. But you can see that the corporate side is starting to, a new executive director means somebody who's going to direct all the executives and the strategy of launching, the strategy of monetizing. So you see that happening, you're like, wow, they must be getting close.
Yeah, that was interesting news last week. How Rick Doblin stepped down as executive director, now president, still very much involved in the company and a very, very important piece to that company. So, new executive director is Kris Lotlikar. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but he has a substantial financial background. So, if I'm connecting the dots, I look at this as, the non-for-profit organization now with the right moves in place. Like, where does this company go, in your opinion, if the readouts are good? Like, do we see it go public? If the readouts are good, could we see big pharma come in? Like, all these things are at play right now from what I'm hearing and seeing.
Yeah, no, I think that's good speculation because, you think about MAPS and the fact that right now their, public benefit area of their company, the way that they're doing it, they're paying people who have put money in, they're paying them a return of say 6%, which, looks like a really, solid return with a lot of money behind it. So you feel really
Yeah.
good about it, but you don't have any upside in MAPS. And so I think they're realizing, they're like, well, look, we're going to have to spend a lot of money because we have to get, I think the number is 50,000. I think you've even talked about how many more
I
therapists we
know.
need just to put the MDMA out. So I think MAPS is making these moves right now where they're like, well, this is going to be so profitable for the next 5 years if we do it right. Of course, we can be a public company. And I think if they were maybe a B Corp, where maybe at the end of the day, all the profits didn't need to go back to the shareholders, but some could be invested in, MDMA coming out into society and things like that. I think people would feel like they could make a lot of money with MAPS if that company, they're allowed to play within
Well,
MAPS.
you talked about 50,000 trained therapists that are going to be needed in the next 24 months. News came out, and full disclosure, Numinus Wellness, who is a client of ours, but they announced 3 weeks ago their Numinus network. And this is basically going to train a lot of doctors with various clinics across the U.S., which basically expands their model, their footprint across the U.S. But when I look deeper into this announcement, do you know much about it? And do you think that we realistically can train 50,000 therapists in a matter of 24 months? Is that realistic?
I believe it's realistic because I think, what Numinous and that deal sort of shows us is that there's some big opportunities here that real people, like Peyton Nyquist, like are
Yep.
going to go after because, people have to, at the end of the day, do their clinical trials and all these things. And these therapists need to be trained. According to Roger McIntyre from Braxia, we're short 2 million therapists, actually.
Two,
So for
two,
MAPS to
did he say
2
2 million?
million, yeah, therapists.
Is
Yeah,
that's
because let's
worldwide?
say, yeah, I don't think, I think that's North America because if you think about it, let's say there's
Oh,
100 million people that need help out of the, 300 million Americans, 2 million, that's 50 patients each. I don't even think they could handle that. So yeah, we need a lot of
wow.
therapists. But the thing that's cool is I think you need less of them with the MAPS because the therapy is so effective. And what the MAPS data is going to show that I think nobody's really expecting is that after 2 months, people had significant benefit from with the therapy and the MDMA for PTSD. But what's shocking is those people were better a year later.
Yeah.
So it continued to work.
Yeah.
And I think for that reason, you don't need as many, when you're talking about talk therapy and just trying to get somebody to feel better by talking it through, you probably need millions for all of that stuff.
Well, I keep talking about optimism. There was something I noticed last week. There was a tweet put out by the chart guys last week outlining how psychedelic stocks. I hate comparing the two stocks or two industries when it comes to stocks, but psychedelic stocks are outperforming cannabis stocks by a mile over the last couple of months. So momentum is building, to say the least. I don't know about you, but it's like I think that there's a huge turning point that's going to happen if these readouts do indeed happen midsummer related to MAPS. But forward-thinking statements, if the readouts happen in the middle, let's say the summer, whether it's a month, 2 months, whatever, once those readouts become public news, public knowledge, and they're as strong as what many people are anticipating, what does this industry look like on the day after?
I think it's already sort of morphing into something very huge because you probably saw the news that the OpenAI founder Altman, he just made an investment and he wants to make sure that psychedelics come out for mental health and
Yeah.
addiction. So for somebody like that who's got, the ability to throw $1 billion here, hundreds of millions over here, and then use OpenAI to make sure that that engine is giving positive reinforcement to these solutions to the mental health and addiction crisis. Like, if we don't even do anything else, if he, channels OpenAI, and I know, Elon Musk, when he launches his competitor OpenAI, he's also a psychedelic advocate and understands this is really important for mental health and addiction. So his engine at the basis of it is going to be very positive on this too. So I think, we have the biggest AI engines. We have the richest people in the world. We have psychedelics helping everybody from soccer moms to,
Yeah.
people in late stage cancer. And it's like, we just have to keep moving this forward. And we have all the strength of the data that MAPS is bringing, Compass Pathways, AI getting behind us. And, everybody wants this to work because this is the only thing
Yeah.
we have for mental health and addiction, period.
I find it interesting. You probably can relate to this, but high income earners are very, very interested in this space because, they got the mind that never shuts off and they don't necessarily work the 9 to 5 type jobs. But through your network of people, because you meet with some pretty influential people, do you agree with that? And is that one of the main reasons why they're involved and so interested in this space?
I think so. I think, in the past, maybe they wouldn't have been so interested. But what's happening is post pandemic, every family has somebody struggling with mental health
Yeah.
issues or addiction. So these people who, maybe they were insulated a while ago from different things that happen in society, this one, they're not. So they look at it going, I need this for my family. I know this is going to be big because of that. Everyone needs this. And I get to play in this space. So I think, yeah, I'm seeing very heavy hitters. Like I said, OpenAI founder, for him to come out yesterday and say, I'm behind this, I've made investments, and I want to see this happen. Uh, it seems like a foregone conclusion that since we know it works, eventually the institutions are going to come in, probably right after Compass Pathway commercializes the first drug. They may get excited with MAPS, and there may be an opportunity, like you said, with a public company for people to get really excited about. But once Compass comes out with their, psilocybin drug, I think we're going to see the institutions jump in and feel, comfortable jumping in.
So, first half and second half part of this question. How do you think commercialization in this industry, when it comes to drugs, is going to work? Like, what's a viable way for everyone to succeed, and everyone, most importantly, get the provide patients with what they need, which is the most important thing, and also have a long-term sustainable industry from a pure business aspect. Like, how does it look, and what do we need to do to make this succeeds?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably more aggressive on this than most anybody else in the world, but I'm saying we have such a crisis of mental health and addiction that we have to allow access to this immediately for people. We need to allow this to be researched by doctors. So we have to change the scheduling of these drugs from Schedule 1 to Schedule something else
Yeah.
because doctors need to be able to work with this in this crisis time. So for me, I think if people have access, I know these things are shown to be very safe, very effective. If we have a crisis with suicide, addiction, fentanyl, all this, access is critical. We can figure out the best way to do it later. We can come up with protocols that are better and better and better. But to start with, we have to acknowledge we're in a crisis and not try to come up with the ultimate protocol before we let people access this. Because there's, just like you've seen with cannabis, they've been fighting for 5 years,
Right.
7 years, on
Yeah.
and on about hemp, CBD, this and that. This, we can't have that here. We just have to have availability. It is your right to try this as a human being. You have the right to go inside your own mind and try to heal yourself with these naturally occurring compounds,
Yeah.
number one. And then, number two, the pharmaceutical companies, they're going to be happy to disseminate psilocybin and other things. I don't think they're resistant at all. They're just waiting for the government to say, okay, we need the pharmaceutical industry. They have the distribution to everybody, and we need that distribution for psilocybin, for ketamine that you rub on your neck, all these different things. We have to have the pharmaceuticals in place. And as far as I'm concerned, they're excited about this. I know they are, but they're waiting for the government and society to say, okay, it's okay to do this business right now and bank it.
So we've touched on this before. Maybe a quick update. You're CEO of the company you're associated with, Psychoceutical. Chad Hammond, am I pronouncing it Harmon?
Chad Harmon, yep,
Harmon.
Psychoceutical,
So
exactly. Yep.
big background, has a long, extensive career working in the insurance industry. So we saw Australia approve both MDMA and psilocybin. What's that? 2 months ago now. But some people are going to have to pay as much as $25,000 out of pocket, which is big money. How does this look in the U.S.? Like, are we going to get insurance coverage on this based on some of the conversations that you're having?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to get it soon. This is a crisis, and the government's acknowledging that. Companies like United Healthcare and stuff are starting to do their own studies with psychedelics. Like you said, Chad Harmon from Psychoceutical, the reason he's the CEO is that not only do you have to bring a drug forward, but you have to get the insurance companies, you have to have something that the insurance companies would be willing to pay for. So I think, like where Psychoceutical, you rub the topical at the back of the neck, the ketamine, and it eliminates the psychedelic effect and any side effects, but you do get the benefits that you're looking for of calmness and neurogeneration. That fact means that people can use it themselves, and that's what the insurance companies, they don't want things like where you need to have two doctors
Yeah.
with you for hours and hours.
Yeah.
That's prohibitive. That's how you get to $25,000, and we don't have any time for that right now. People are busy, they're in suffering, they need things like something that are topical, they rub on, something simple. And I think if you're a psychedelic company and you're focused on making it simple and easy for people to access these compounds, that's a good use of your time, because the more we make these pharmaceutical, the easier it's going to be for the uptake with the companies, the government, and society, who ultimately has to rub it on their neck and feel good about it.
So how does that work then? Because one of the most important things I'm learning is psychedelic assisted therapy is very crucial when somebody's trying to heal and get better. So with a lot of stuff that potentially could be at home medications, how does that work? Like, are you having conversations with psychedelic? Like, how does that all work out, and how will that basically transpire?
Yeah, so there's different levels of PTSD, and I had Rick Doblin recently come to the Psychoceutical lab and check out our neurodirect ketamine, which takes out that psychedelic effect, but gives you this calm feeling for hours and hours. And I think the reality of that is that, everyone wants that, and so when you are, looking at a compound or some way to commercialize, I think there's, a lot of companies out there that are, just trying to figure what will work. We're trying to emulate, here's MAPS, they've got MDMA coming out. And what Rick said to us about that was that maybe for somebody who's been to Afghanistan, they might need 3 sessions with people, but somebody who has PTSD from, something that happened during COVID or a trauma or a loss, they might just need, a little topic on the neck. Maybe this is something for them, or maybe this is aftercare for people who have the 3 sessions with MAP. So I think what I'm saying is if this stuff is legal,
Yeah.
then we can test all of this. And I'm even saying, Shad, that, like a peanut allergy, it's like something like 2,500 people a year get diagnosed with a peanut allergy.
Yeah.
And we don't eliminate all peanuts because of them. We just do tests so we figure out who should and shouldn't have what. Same thing here with psychedelic medicine. Once we can research this, we're going to know, hey, you shouldn't use tryptamines. You should use microdose. Whatever the different things are, we're going to know. And I think that's what's exciting is, the applications are, yes, you want to do integration work after your psychedelic experience because, it's kind of 50-50. It's like the medicine does what it does. Then you have to integrate that into your life, maybe change your lifestyle, all kinds of things like that. But in the meantime, we have to give people that bridge, that window, that opening to, have that ability to change their lifestyle. And so it's very important for the industry that we get this right and we just push forward for all legalization, right to try with psychedelics, and then let's come up with what works best and make those the protocols.
So right now, I think a lot of people are starting to learn there's ketamine clinics that are popping up all across the country, and many of them are not profitable. Why is that?
I think a lot of them went after the wrong client group. They were going after, if you think about Field Trip, that's somebody who wants to go on a
Yeah.
trip, or Mind Bloom, bloom your mind. We're in a mental health crisis, and I think the only ketamine companies that are going to work out are the ones that are kind of dedicated, like you said, to giving somebody a treatment, giving them some prior setup for it, and then afterwards to help them to integrate it into their life. Because if you just give somebody one treatment and then you leave them on their own, it's probably not going to have the effect they want. And a lot of these ketamine companies that are medically based, the doctors and their staff, they've never even done ketamine. How are they supposed to exactly help these people to integrate?
Yeah.
They're not doing it, so they're not thriving. The companies that I've seen in ketamine that give somebody an experience, integration, and community, because I think community and some of these group practices that some of the more successful ketamine companies I'm involved with, they're now doing group practices where you can do several people at the same time, like whether it's an HR function at a company for an executive team or just a group of people. There's economies of scale with the group where ketamine works really well with a group, and they have to kind of move forward with what's going to work, not with just, oh, hey, why don't I open a ketamine clinic? It seems like everybody's making money and I'll just charge more and, I'll be in a good location. That's not going to cut it. It's just, you got to be more strategic than that and find your audience. There's pockets of places. I'm here talking to you today from Delray Beach, Florida, and this is the drug and alcohol rehab capital of the
Wow.
East Coast. And so there's, literally hundreds of people in treatment and families and people supporting them. It's a very big, probably thousands of people here. And so in this community where we're launching a psychedelic wellness center, while we're doing that, this is the perfect audience. If I was to open that, in Scottsdale, Arizona, just because I think I can try to make money, it's probably going to fail.
Real quick, Zappy, I lost your camera.
Aha. Okay. So I think it may catch up in the, when I download it to you, it may all be there. I have a
Okay, you're
feeling.
back.
Yeah.
You're back. Okay, all right. That's a clean cut. So 3, 2, and 1. Last thing I'll ask you, when I was at Benzinga, I had a fascinating conversation with Perry Miele. He's the chairman of Behringer Capital, which is the private equity firm that made a big investment into the media company Benzinga. And he sat me down. He said the most important thing that I tell all the people at Benzinga, and I'll say the same thing with you, Shad, from a media company perspective, you have to have one main takeaway that people learned about attending this conference in order for them to come back. And one of the questions that he brought up, and I've been asking a lot of people this question over the last couple of weeks, what is, I guess, the number one reason why people should still invest in psychedelic stocks, knowing stocks have been down 90% over the last 2 years? What's your response to that?
Well, given that have been through a few of these new trillion-dollar industries, from the internet and domain names to
Yeah.
to cannabis and on. Like, if you look at the trend, what happens is it comes out hot. A lot of froth happens in the stock market. A lot of fake companies just trying to get money, and then it shakes out. We already had the
Yeah.
shakeout, and
Yeah.
now the cream rises to the top. And so now everybody understands that if you're here and you're viable and you have money or access to capital and you're doing something unique in the mental health area, there's unlimited money right now for mental health treatments in pharma, in business. There's no shortage. It's just you have to be focused on that, where some of these companies, I think before, they were just kind of trying to give you a fun, cool experience to,
Yeah.
raise your consciousness. We're in such a horrifying situation with the country and the mental health of the country that we need something else, which is psychedelics now for people. And I think if you're hearing this podcast or you were at Benzinga, you're in the first inning of this game. And if you make a couple of good bets, whether it's a Thai or psychoceutical that I'm involved in, or Numinus or whoever it is, if you make some bets now and you just put them away and you think this is going to be a $1 trillion industry, when you look back a few years from now, you'll probably have set up your entire retirement just from those investments that you made in the early days of this industry.
Here's a great example I was given by gentleman. He's ran a shop in Wall Street. He's now into crypto. 60 years old. Love this guy. He's went out and reinvented himself, and he's just like, proper investing is when you invest in something today and you believe the company will be worth more in say 2 to 3 years from now. And I think we've gotten so far away from that because everybody wants like a quick fix.
Yep.
But that's the reality. And when I think of this space, to your point, a lot of companies, there was many as 400, I think, almost 2 years ago that wanted to go public. I think we've just gone down this road and just a lot of people have been educated on, what's going to work, what's sustainable, and what's not. And most important thing I find, and I love this term, and I think this fits the psychedelic space, it's all about making the wrong turn down the right road. And that's, I think, where people
Mm,
are going to be led, and that's all part of mental health. Like it's incredible the disease as to how people fight and are scared and to try something new. But for those that have done it, and I'm sure they can relate to a lot of those things that people can be worried about going in, it's just the data that continues to perform where
mm,
people are
yeah.
quite emotional and release a lot of probably stress, emotional stress over years and years and years. But I love the term make a wrong turn down the right road, and that's the space.
Yeah, I want to tell you, you might have seen this Matthew Huberman, who a lot of people follow. He's got a very big health following. Huberman said that he recently changed his mind on psychedelics. He had been against them for years because the data wasn't there. And he said, I read a Stanford report, and he said he was like just almost like in tears or something because he was like,
Wow.
wow, like I totally changed my opinion. These are the best people. This is the best information. I have no reason to refute this. And he just all of a sudden came over to the psychedelic advocate side, while at the same time making a strong statement that, no amount of alcohol is good for you, which was a common,
Yeah.
perception. So well, those types of people where they're going from, you know, negative to extremely positive based on Stanford data. It's like, yeah, how are you going to refute that? Are you smarter than Huberman? Are you smarter than the people at Stanford? Are you smarter than Matt Johnson at Johns Hopkins and Rick Doblin at MAP? Probably not. So why don't you just kind of, fall in here that we're really lucky to have these psychedelics for mental health. And if you're hearing about it now, you probably just have to put a little bit of money in to probably fund your whole retirement.
Well, as our good friend Andy Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption once said, hope is a powerful thing. And I think that's the encouraging thing about the industry, right?
For sure. It really works as advertised. We know that, and most things don't, but psychedelics do. And so, given that our crises are so big with mental health and addiction, that we have these and they're available, it's kind of a godsend right now.
Great catching up with you. Keep in touch. Keep cool.
You
I want to
too.
pair. I want to pair
Peace.
those sunglasses, brother.
On the way. We got them being made.
Yeah.
So thanks,
Thanks,
man.
Zappy. Appreciate your time. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.